Hi there, and welcome to Unfiltered Solopreneur, the podcast where we share real, unvarnished stories of people who dared to break free from the corporate grind. I'm your host, Nikhil, and I'm passionate about helping solopreneurs like you turn their dreams into reality. What if the skills you spent decades mastering weren't the ones you rely on when you finally went solo? In this episode, Jen Dayton shares what it took to go from high school teacher to solo founder and why building a personal brand in public has been more challenging than any job she's had before. We talk about the identity crisis that hits when you step out from behind the scenes, how to create content that's actually sustainable, and why the biggest work is often internal. If you've ever felt like a reluctant marketer or a solo act still hiding in plain sight, this one's for you. I'll see you on the other side with my takeaways. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Unfiltered Solopreneur. I'm your host, Nikhil Vesh, founder and CEO of Boost Solo. My next guest is a self-taught design entrepreneur who turned her love for decorating into a lifestyle brand, building a business from the ground up with grit, style, and a serious knack for figuring things out as she goes. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited for our conversation and I like to dive right in. So
Yeah.
let me start by asking you now, you've lived three completely different professional lives, right? Teacher, sales executive, now founder. But even before that, your path wasn't linear. So, what made you finally take the leap from employee to solopreneurship?
So I would say, the biggest step for me, for so many years, I was, just working, whether it was in public service as a teacher or I was in sales, but I was always working for someone. And for many years, I kind of had this stirring inside of me that, or maybe this creativity that I really wasn't aware of. I didn't grow up knowing that I was creative or thought that I was creative. And so I didn't actually find out or really realize until about 3, 4 years ago. So, when I'm in these working for these businesses or these large companies, my creativity was limited. I was feeling kind of like I was a number, just just an employee. And so that really for me, just many years of kind of that, even though I learned so much from my colleagues and from sales managers and mentors for many years, I just felt like there was something missing. And so I finally just had a desire to go at it full force. And I finally did.
And it sounds like, if I heard you right, you already had sort of the seed there, right? That you had always wanted
Yeah.
to. You just sort of were building the confidence or just figuring the right time to do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Throughout your journey, you faced challenges from undiagnosed ADD to major career pivots. So, how has that kind of resilience shaped the way you run your business today?
Well, I would say that because I've had, ADD my whole life, or since I've been very young, since I was aware of that I was very different than other children in the classroom. I think that having to always work extra hard than your peers came from a very, very young age. Having to, go the extra mile, do the extra studying. That made me very resilient. That's one of the words that really kind of describes me as resilient, because I've had to go many years trying to just keep going, just to keep up with my peers. So that's where I get my resilience from, to stay motivated and build this business.
Yeah, and well, you need a lot of grit and resilience on a solopreneur journey, and we'll get into that a little more. And I think you've mentioned some ups and downs, which we'll talk about. But the other thing
Yeah.
that was interesting to me is you built Homecrest for 6 months while you were still working a full time corporate job, right? So it was like you were living a double life. So tell us a little bit about how you balanced those things, and then when you finally decided, okay, you had the seed, but I'm going to bet on myself now.
Yeah. So yes, the first 6 months. So I started Homecrest Company in April 2023, and I was still working a corporate sales job. I live in the Midwest, and so I was covering three of the Midwest states, and I was traveling a lot, and just again that kind of desire of not feeling fulfilled. And so that's when I started Homecrest Company. But I wasn't because I don't come from money, or I don't come from from wealth or have a lot of resources. I had to work for 6 months to sustain a household, but I still had this desire to build my own business. And so for that first 6 months, I, just buckled down and worked a full-time job and traveled half the time. And when I was at home and I was able to work from home for half of that time, I was, after working at 5, I would continue to build the business at night. And, the first 6 months, I don't even really remember it because I was probably sleeping 4 hours a night. But yeah, no, I mean, it was just continuing to go on and go on. And then I finally got to a point where it just wasn't sustainable. And so I kind of had to figure that out. I kind of felt that come, July and August. So a few months after I had started Homecrest Company, that I was just like, I can't, I really need to follow my passion. And something just kept telling me, just do it.
Oh yeah, what I was going to ask you is, so did you actually have a plan in mind when you started out, when you were sort of doing the 6 months? Did you have like a timeline to say, okay, I'm going to do this for 6 months or 8 months? Did you have milestones, or like you said, you felt you were ready now to do it and your intuition said do it now? But did you start out with a plan? I'm curious.
No,
No.
I didn't. It kind of just started in early March of 2023, about a month before I created the business. It just started as a thought. I was sitting on the couch and just, I've loved home decor as long as I can remember, since I was little. And I came up with I thought of the question, how can I showcase what I love? How do I show the world what I love? And so really Homecrest Company was started with the social media aspect of, I created an Instagram and a Facebook and TikTok and so on, and started, my love for home decor and putting that on social media. That's really how it started. And then it kind of morphed into, okay, how do I make money?
Yeah.
And so that's really how the home decor store started. But it was very quickly, within a month or two, I pivoted, from this, I guess I'll just do a social media, kind of home decor aspect of building a business, to, okay, let's push this into some kind of e-commerce and then eventually retail. So yeah, there was no plan in the beginning. It kind of just evolved into what it is now.
Yeah, it's funny because I talk to so many solopreneurs and I always tell them sort of action leads to clarity, right? You just have to
Yes.
start. It's like, I don't know anyone who had like a 6 month or a 1 year plan that's still doing what they had planned to do back then, right? It's
Right.
but and until you start, you're also not going to know what exactly is working, what's not working, who your audience is, how to sort of fine tune things. So, yeah, I think I know a lot of people sort of get stuck with analysis paralysis, right? They want to build a
Yes.
perfect plan, and that just doesn't work.
No, it's not realistic.
Yeah, so I'm also curious about what did you think solopreneurship would be like, and what about it has caught you off guard or surprised you?
Oh, looking back at it, when I was in sales or I was an educator, when I looked at solopreneurs or small business owners, well, I didn't know what a solopreneur was before I
Yeah,
became a business owner, first. But, you know, you don't see how hard it is on the back end, or, you just kind of, you see what is put out there, but there's so much behind the scenes. And especially when you're a solopreneur and you're doing everything on your own and you're building that, the beginning parts or the beginning stages of your business. So I'm very, I guess I'm saying I'm very surprised at how much hard work and how long you have to sustain that. It's not overnight. I'm on 2 years, and it's just been a journey, but I love it and I don't regret any of it.
yeah, it is, and that's why I think they say that you should love what you're doing, because unlike the
Yes.
corporate paycheck where it's just sort of that's the means to the end, this is, if you're not waking up on Sunday feeling excited about Sunday, working on Sunday, forget Monday, then it's going
Right,
to be
right,
a problem.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
Yes.
And also, honestly, I've never worked harder than I'm working now in my solo life. The corporate world you think is a grind, but I'm like, wait till you start working for yourself.
Right, right. You won't have a day off in 2 years. So
No. Yeah. I mean, you have freedoms, right? Like we could
Yes.
walk out of here right now and go to the supermarket at or 2 in the afternoon, or go have lunch
Right.
with a friend. I mean, there are lots of
Mhm.
there are trade offs with everything, but I think in terms of there, but you have to also draw boundaries. I think that's part of the thing too, because otherwise you could burn out. So,
That is
but
true. Yes.
yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about branding now. So you've built a strong online presence, but behind the scenes you're also running the whole operation, right? So
Yes.
what's been the hardest part of building a brand while you're building a business?
To tackle the two, because they're really, quite honestly, they're two separate entities, or I've
Yeah.
kind of created it to be two separate entities. And what I mean by that is that when I started Homecrest Company, it was myself as, a social media, or like I like to call it a lifestyle content creator. I was creating content, pushing it out, and then I was also kind of creating this whole retail business aspect, and it became where I was getting, companies reaching out to me for collaborations, and it was getting to the point where it was very, I had to separate the two from the lifestyle content creator to Homecrest and Company, the actual home decor and gift business.
Right.
And so I had to really, so in June of 2024, I created a separate entity called Dayton Lifestyle, which is really the social media aspect of me, and that's really helped to organize, um because again, I'm yes, they coexist. I use the lifestyle brand, John Dayton Lifestyle, to promote Homecrest and Company products, but when you get collaborations for some, in the home decor industry, and even I've gotten several, fashion collaborations, and so I had to kind of pivot and make, you know room for that content, or those collaborations.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, it is balancing those two entities. They have to be interconnected, obviously, which they are. But
Mhm.
it's sort of like you. It's almost like in those movie sets. I always think like you have the facade and there's nothing behind it. That's kind of how I think of solopreneurship is. You may have a beautiful facade, but you've still got to build the guts of the business, right? The
Yes.
operations, the finances, the structure, the workflow systems. All of that still has to be done, and CRM and social media and everything. So it's like building the business or flying the plane as you build it, right? That's kind of the best
Yes.
analogy. Yeah,
That is the perfect analogy. I
right.
love that.
Well, I didn't come up with that, but so the other thing you told me, you're still sort of figuring out how to describe what you do, right? Between home decor, lifestyle content, staging. So let me ask you then, what do you want people to immediately understand about you and your work?
I think that I like to just, as I am evolving in this journey as a small business owner, I just, my style changes, or my interests change. I've kind of started getting into a little bit of fashion lately, but still working on home decor, and I think I just want people to see me as a creative, someone in the lifestyle, the home industry, because my first love is home decor and interior design, but with that love, it kind of spiraled into other things that I've learned to love, or that I've always loved, but wanted to kind of now start creating content around. So, yeah, I would just say, have people look at me as a creative. Um, there's so much under that umbrella of being creative, or an artist,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, lifestyle is pretty broad and all encompassing too, right?
Yes.
It can cover a lot of different things. So, I mean, is there? So, I'm just curious. Is there like a misconception that people have about home staging, for example, that you're working to change through your content?
Yeah, I think that, just based on kind of, at least where I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and where we are particularly, home staging is not something that's a really super popular service.
Hmm.
And I've talked to, it might be, obviously it is in New York City and Chicago, but right where I'm at, right in between, I'm 2 hours right from Chicago and exactly 2 hours from Detroit. And so, we're just in an area where I think that home staging is starting to become more valued. And it's not looking at something, it's not looking at it from just like, oh, it's decorations. It's now looking at it from a data perspective and saying, if you stage your home properly, you can sell your home for X amount of percentage more. Because, when someone walks into your home and they're looking at your home that's on the market, they need to see furniture. They need to see an environment that's welcoming, that reminds them of home, instead of just an empty, area. So I think that that's, something that's beginning to change, at least where I'm at. So.
Yeah, and there's an interesting balance with that, right? Because my wife's cousin actually did that home staging too, and she'd always say you shouldn't, you need to find the balance between overstaging, because then people can't imagine themselves in the space, and understaging, right? So it's just got to be enough to make sure that they can sort of walk in there, it feels homely and not like an empty space, because people can't use their imagination, but just enough to make them feel like I could live here. So
Right. Yeah. And it's absolutely, it's a psychology thing. You want to feel comforted when you're walking into a space, and imagine that it can be yours. So.
yeah. And I love that you're tying ROI to it, right? Because that's important for people to sort of understand that it's not just a pretty expense or an expense that makes things look nicer. You're actually increasing the value of the home, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done some partnerships with some local realtors in Kalamazoo, and, some of them really understand it. They understand the data behind it. And, because, home decor kind of began in, the 70s, or, really started becoming something, into what it is now. And so, I just hope that it kind of becomes this service that becomes a normal thing during the buying process, or setting your home up for success when you're getting ready to sell your home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess the other thing that's interesting to me is it's also the lifestyle, home decor, sort of what we were just talking about, is a pretty crowded space, right? So how do you differentiate yourself in this space? What are some of the things you do to stand out?
Well, yeah, I think that first and foremost, if I compare myself, from a local perspective or regional perspective, I think that both the home decor and the retail store kind of together, and putting, the owner, the business, the face, behind the brand on social media, and, creating content around both the retail Homecrest Company brand. And so, yeah, I think that that's what has set me apart is, you can reach a lot more people using social media. And so I think that it's just a very powerful tool that small business owners and solopreneurs, because you are on your own. If I didn't have social media, I don't believe there's no way I would have gotten this far without that aspect, because I didn't have employees helping me. And so
Yeah,
to have that social media to, when you're using relevant hashtags and keywords, people are able to discover you and discover your brand faster.
right. Yeah, I mean it's an amplifier, right? But
Yes.
but
Yeah,
you
a
still
time
have,
saver.
yeah, time saver. Well, and also, but you still have to have you have to have a differentiated point of view, right? In terms of being able to attract your customers and talk to them.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing which was interesting is you also taught yourself everything, right? From SEO to website development to social media marketing. Now I know you have to wear a lot of hats, but so the other interesting thing you told me is you've taught yourself everything, right? From SEO to website development to social media marketing. So I was just curious if there was if the most effective DIY marketing tactic or hack that you've used that we can share, if something comes to mind.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So, again, I'm big on time saving. So when you're a solopreneur, you don't have a lot of time. Um, you wear many hats. So
Yeah.
I have found certain platforms that I'm able to integrate, let's say from the retail aspect or the Homecrest Company, things that have saved me time, is using certain platforms that integrate with my website, right? So we're streamlining orders and it's saving time, and you can integrate shipping with that. And so that saved time. From the social media perspective, a DIY hacker that I've kind of just a trick that I've learned that are, that I use that I highly recommend with social media when it comes to small business owners. And again, it can be anything from someone like myself that does the social media content creating all the way to the product based um, pages in social media. But to use, first, I highly recommend an Instagram and a Facebook profiles. Let's say you're selling, products, and use their meta platform, because you're able to schedule posts ahead of time. The analytics behind it, the data, the tracking is phenomenal. And again, when you're by yourself, you don't have a lot of time to dive into the data, and figure out what posts are working, what hashtags are working, how are we generating leads to the website from Facebook and Instagram. So just finding things like that are time savers that you can schedule ahead of time, things that you can duplicate very easily, posts that you can duplicate and reuse. So that's what I would say would be beneficial.
Yeah, and there are a lot of tools now, right, that you can sort of
Yes,
use. And do you use AI too? I'm curious if you
I
how you
do.
use it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I use that for the product based posts. If I'm today it's I'm selling, a pillow on Homecrest Company, both on the Instagram shop and the Facebook page. That's a time saver, to be able to, just put in, here is the product, and I put the link, of the product, and I'm able to kind of figure out, what type of style do I want in the post, but it saves me time on the write up.
Yeah, I know. And I call Claude, GPT, and Gemini my three assistants. And they're like
Yes.
lifesavers for a solopreneur. Because I literally, they're
Oh yeah.
integrated into every aspect of my work. I use them maybe like
Yes.
6 hours a day. I mean, I'm on them like 6 hours a day. And
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
can do 18 hours worth of work as a result of that in a day. So they really, but yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
But the only caveat I always say is that, don't ask AI what to do, tell AI what to do. So don't look for it to solve your problems or give you to do stuff for you, right? It'll help you get faster, better, make things better, but not really originate stuff or ideas. So I
Yes.
think that's the caveat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you did also, I think you mentioned that you had also looked at some freelancers and that was not a good experience, right? So it wasn't like you were trying to do all of these things on your own. You did try to bring in help, but got burned, because I've heard that a lot from a lot of solopreneurs too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that for me, I I am always self-reflect of, hey, I need learning experiences in
Yeah.
order to self-improve. And so, for me, I was not in a position where I felt comfortable to hire an employee. That's a lot of responsibility, to make sure that if I'm hiring somebody, that I'm able to keep them on long term.
Yeah.
Um, that's extremely important. And so for me, the only route was to do freelancers. And so again, because of time, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I used some top brands as far as where freelancers come to find work. And and some were good, but others it was not very good. And it didn't really matter, where they were positioned geographically, whether they were in the US or out of the US. It was kind of just the same experience. I'm someone that loves to talk, and especially talk in person. And so for me, I've just kind of learned, you know, if I'm going to subcontract or use a freelancer, I want to be able to talk with them in person, because a lot of things can, in digital, right, when you're talking to someone, a lot of things can be misinterpreted, or maybe you didn't understand my design in the website, or whatever it is. So that's just been my experience.
Yeah, no, I personally also got burned on Fiverr. Like, somebody promised to do a lot of stuff and didn't deliver. So, and those are stories I've heard a lot of. And that's one of the reasons I started Boost Solo also, is I want to build a trusted network of vetted and trusted providers, right? Because I think that's an Achilles heel for solopreneurs, because you can't do everything. You do need to,
No.
I'm not talking about hiring full-time employees, because I don't think that's necessary. You can have contractors, right, who come in based on
Mhm.
expertise, like you want to upgrade your website, do make some changes to SEO. But you need to have, because I rely on my network. I literally go out and ask people, hey, I need help with this. Do you know
Yeah.
somebody? Inevitably somebody will know somebody who, and then they're a trusted resource, right? I don't have to worry about vetting them. I don't have to worry about being disappointed or let down. And I think that's
Yes.
really critical, because otherwise we lose so much momentum and time, and money is scarce resource when you're a one person company. So yeah.
Yes, and to your point, the best work that I've received from freelancers or contractors uh, are definitely that situation. It just I've learned a lot from that and have gotten burned, but I've learned my lesson. So
Yeah, me too. And so yeah, and that's one of the things I definitely, so down the road I want to launch this community, because just getting recommendations from people you trust and know is worth gold, right? So
oh,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that idea of you launching that. I mean, I think that that's a phenomenal resource for someone like myself and others, because it's hard to find where something is, well, a lot of resources in one place, and it's trusted resources, or it's information that's accurate, and contractors or freelancers that, have done the work and have great recommendations.
Yeah, and from a known source, that's the difference, right? Because
Yes.
you get highly rated people on these freelance platforms too. They may have 5-star ratings, but you still don't know what you don't know, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's why I prefer to get it from a human, but that's just me.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yep.
And like you, I like to talk to them too. Like, even if
Yes.
we're not geographically located, I like to get on a video call, have a conversation. And I know some generations find that tedious doing face to face, but hey, I'm
For
hiring
sure.
you. We got to do it
Right.
this way. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I'm struggling with right now, as I'm starting to, okay, I'm getting in the process now that I'm opening a retail store, I will be hiring employees and
Yeah.
I will be a boss. But one aspect, I always receive leads from multiple uh, on LinkedIn, and, just of freelancers, wanting to do the AI chat bot. And I am not, as a business owner, and just kind of, again, I'm old school, where, I want somebody to call Homecrest Company and speak to somebody, or somebody's actually answering an email. And so I'm not okay with that as a business owner, like, I'm not there. And so my brand is going to be built on actual, like, real good customer service, and what we had 10 years ago in retail, or 15 years ago in retail. So yeah.
I love that. In fact, I personally think that is going to be a differentiator moving forward, because I get really, I wouldn't say incensed, but irritated with like getting responses from people with their CRM. I mean, I've had conversations with people, and a week later I get something when we connect on LinkedIn, which is automated, behaving like, "Hey, hi, how are you? I'd love to connect with you. Like, let's meet
Yeah.
up." And I'm like, "We just chatted 4 days ago." Like, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
Yes.
think that's going to get worse though, right? So I think it has
Oh,
a time
yes.
and a place. Like, I don't mind an initial outreach, but I actually then always intervene and putting the human touch into the process, right? Because that's really important to me too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's nothing worse when you call a business and you can't get a hold of a live person. And so, I think we've just, I don't know what, maybe as a society or a country, I don't know. We've come very far from customer service,
Yeah.
and having a retail background myself, working at Nextel Communications, and Victoria's Secret Beauty, a lot of my background is based on great customer service. And so that was one thing that I wanted to set Homecrest and Company apart, was, I just don't feel that I will ever be comfortable with that kind of technology, but I don't think it's going to get better, to your point. So
Yeah. And it can have a place, right? There is basic stuff it can
absolutely.
take care of, but
Yes.
ultimately you don't want it to replace the human in the process, is the way I think about it.
No,
There should always be
that's,
human intervention. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So the other thing which you mentioned to me is you've landed some press coverage and interviews, right? Which is huge. Any solopreneur business would crave that. But you've also said you're not sure how to convert that visibility into revenue, right? So can you talk a little bit about what feels like the missing link right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that, I get a lot of reach outs, or collaborations regarding interviews, or, social media. Um, and, and I love it because the visibility. However, I've gotten to a point, I feel, where I need to have it cross over into revenue, right? And
Yeah.
start generating dollars into that. And so that's where I've kind of struggled is, just continuing to do it, do these promotional aspects of Jen Dayton Lifestyle and Homecrest Company. However, how timely they are, and then not receiving. And so just kind of trying to figure out from a brand perspective when that happens. But, I feel that it will come,
Yeah.
with time and with patience and with faith. And so I have no doubt it'll get there, but it's just kind of trying to figure out how to bridge that, I guess, from a branding perspective.
Yeah, it is hard to do. I was talking to another solopreneur who sort of had similar like massive coverage. She ended up on like a national show and stuff like that. But I was like, but again, was because it's not a muscle you've built already, right? You have to sort of
Right.
figure out how to start capitalizing on it because you can't plan for that. you know, that
Right,
coverage
right,
happen.
absolutely.
It's a wonderful thing. It's a good problem to have, but I think
Yes, it is.
most people struggle in terms of like, now how do I turn that into, like, I always say likes and engagement also don't lead to revenue, right? I know a lot of people I've spoken to who are like, oh my god, I get so many likes, so many like reposts, but not one client. So
Right, right.
there is a trick to that I think you have to sort of figure out how to connect those two dots, right? Which takes a little bit of time, as you said, and you just have to
Yeah,
sort of keep at it, yeah, and figure out how to capitalize on that.
yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing you talked to me about was sort of you described a vicious cycle, right? Of needing funding to grow, but getting eliminated from grant opportunities because you don't have employees. So could you talk a little bit about how you've been the creative approaches you've used to sort of bootstrap and grow despite some of these constraints?
Yeah, I've had to kind of think outside the box as, again, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know how hard it would be to be a female business owner, especially, I guess, in the state of Michigan. That's at least just been my experience is, I'm applying for grants and I'm applying for loans. And, again, I'm somebody that has put everything into this business. And so, when you get turned down for specific grants or certain loans because you don't have employees or, you haven't made over $50,000 in revenue, and you're starting out.
Yeah.
It's been very difficult. Even as a female entrepreneur, or solopreneur, um, you think there's resources out there, but for me, it's just been very difficult. And so I've had to kind of, get creative and, um, a Kickstarter campaign is something I'm in the works of right now. A lot of networking to try to find some funding. But about 6 months ago, I did, make the decision because I knew that what I was doing, I believed in myself so much that um, I knew what I had was good. I know what I have is good. And so I decided to sell my home to fund the rest of what I needed to do. To really, because I wasn't getting any opportunities. Nobody was giving me a handout and I wasn't asking for it, but I just needed a chance. And
Yeah.
so I had to take a chance on myself and I don't regret it. But I downsized, my life and was able to, and I really streamlined my personal expenses, no cable, real lot of sacrifice to get to this point. But in order to, I needed the equity in this home that I had quite a bit of equity. And really this home was what built Homecrest Company. It was, a lot of the social media was filmed in this home, and this was the kind of the crux of the idea behind Homecrest Company. So, with the equity of selling my home, I pulled the trigger and found a wonderful. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better spot in downtown Kalamazoo. I'm right next
Yeah.
to a very iconic bar that's been there for 100 years, at Green Top Tavern, and so a very well known, great historic place. But again, when you don't have, the bills keep coming in, right? And you've got renovations and you've got things and it's hard to secure funding. But I have faith that things will happen. And I'm continuing to, I'm in there multiple times a week, still doing a lot of the renovations on the store myself. But yeah, I've had to make some sacrifices financially in order to make this dream happen. But I don't regret it, and I know that it'll all work out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I say this, I tell my friends when they ask me sometimes, I'm like, I've never been poorer, but I've never been happier. And that's kind of, that's sort of the
Hmm.
balance. Now, poverty is a relative word, but still, in terms of, you
Yes,
know, you have to make sacrifices. You have to, because you've got to have, if you don't have faith in what you're doing, then why would anybody else, right? I mean, that's the way I think about it. So that is
absolutely.
all part of the journey, which people don't really talk about, to be honest. We see the social media is full of lying on a beach, drinking
Yes.
exotic cocktails while the money is
Yeah.
sort of rolling into your bank account, right? That's sort of the
Yeah.
image that's been posted out there. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And that's not the reality at all.
not
So
for
at least,
anybody.
not mine.
But not anybody. I'm yet to meet a person whose reality has been that. Now, maybe 10 years or 5 years or 7 years of doing what we're doing, or 10 years, then you may have you may get to some of that reality. But, and these days with AI, who knows? I've seen people like walking out of private jets, which is an AI ad creation, right? So
Yes.
lots happening. So the other thing in terms of the some of the hardships, you also mentioned being feeling dismissed by the Chamber of Commerce, right? When because you didn't have a brick and mortar space. So can you talk a little bit about sort of how you've built credibility and connection on your own terms?
Yeah, I think that, for whatever reason, I go to these events, and I think that the way that I built my business or started my business um was very different. It wasn't your traditional. So I think
Yeah.
that typically, or I can't really, my experience has been that because the first 2 years of Homecrest Company, I was in my home building this business. I didn't really have a need to go out and network, and again, I know many people in the community from being an educator for almost a decade, and so I was just, I was at home trying to create a business, and didn't really feel a need to have to step out the first 2 years. And then, you go, okay, you get to a point where you can't grow anymore. I have customers going, where are you located, when I'm going to these markets? And it was just inevitable that I needed to do this in order to continue. But, it was kind of this, at least for me, this was my experience, is going to these networking events and kind of just feeling very dismissed, and feeling very, just, again, because I didn't have a brick and mortar downtown. I was just this online, uh, you know, e-commerce shop. Uh, that's at least how it felt to me.
Right.
And so when you go to these events and you don't really feel very welcome, and you don't have anybody from the Chamber of Commerce coming up to you, and you're kind of just, okay, like, and so I've had to just go, okay, well, I'll find my own mentorship, and I will, just figure it out. And I have found so many great people in downtown Kalamazoo, business owners, you know, uh, next to me, Green Street Marketing, uh, the woman owned business. She's been phenomenal. She's actually the one that helped me find this spot
Space. Yeah.
where I'm at. So I've had to, think outside of the box in terms of, you know, but I just, those have been kind of the struggles that I have been through and I've had to navigate, but that's not anything that I'm not used to. And I've had to deal with that my entire life. And so it was not very surprising. And so I just kind of have to pivot and figure out, okay, who can help me, and who can I help? Right. Because it's about a collaboration. I love collaborating. It's one of my favorite things to do. So it's not just me, give or,
Mhm.
take. I would love to give and do local collaboration. So, you know, again, I hope that maybe, in the future I can, you know, cast my networking out more in Kalamazoo. But yeah, that's just been my experience. So
Yeah, and I think that's sort of part of the journey, right? There were two things for me
yes,
that were hard. Also, is like the rejection is
yes,
hard because for the first time you've got no shield, right? Because when I was working on IBM or Kodak, people said no. They were like, yeah, they didn't like the brand. Now it's like, oh my
right,
god, they don't like me. There's something wrong with me, right? I mean, so there's a
right.
phase you go through there. And now I'm just like, I will tell people like, roast me, give me your worst. I want to learn what I'm doing, what I can do better, right? And people are like, really? I'm like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Oh,
don't hold
yes,
back. Like, I'm not, but
for
it's
sure.
taken me a
Yeah.
while to
Well,
get there.
yes.
It's not that it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
hurt your ego, but you realize that is valuable, right? And the second part is also, I always say, find your tribe, right? You have to find your tribe like you have now. Not everybody's going to be your tribe, and that's okay too, right? People sometimes don't understand, or they don't feel like there's, there's value, or they don't see the value, and that will happen too on this journey, especially as a solopreneur. You're sort of out there on your own a lot more than I think any other, path
Mhm.
in the professional world.
Right. And I think that, again, not getting, I don't want to say the word credibility, but I guess because I didn't have employees and I didn't have
Yeah.
a brick and mortar, and I was, creating kind of something that perhaps, I don't know if it's been done in this area, but, someone kind of creating this business with an e-commerce platform, but also a social media aspect, and turning it into a retail. I don't, and so, but yeah, 10 years, 10 years ago, that would have bothered me. But today I just am not even phased by it. I just continue to, keep on, keep on.
Yeah, you can't take those things personally, even though they may feel personal, right? And I think that's an important lesson for people to learn on this journey. And honestly, we all build that, right? Nobody comes out of the womb not feeling hurt when someone says,
Right. Oh yeah,
criticizes
absolutely.
them or rejects
Absolutely.
them. So, and it's part of
Yes.
being human, but you get over it and you learn
Yeah.
sort of how to deal with that. But from that, let me ask you, so how do you protect your mental and emotional health when you go through these ups and downs and the setbacks and this idea of, because you're literally building something from nothing? That's kind of what solopreneurs do.
Yeah. For me, it's been a couple of things. I meditation has been huge. Making sure that I take the time for me. Now that's hard because I'm somebody that gets up at about 4:30 a.m. and I'm, getting started with my day. And but to really, stick to my schedule, but also honor time for myself. And also, my faith has really been something that has been um, a huge aspect of my mental health, and getting through this, because it is a very lonely journey in the beginning, especially when you're a solopreneur and you're on your own and you're building something, that you hope is sustainable and you can bring on employees and make it big. But so yeah, I would say that that's what's really grounded me and kept me sane during this time.
Yeah, and it's important to do, right? I mean, I know people sort of in the professional poo-poo meditation or self-care, but I've also learned it's like it's really important, because if you burn out this machine, then your business fails. I mean, there's nothing else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. If I, when I was sleeping 4 hours, I mean, literally 4 hours a night for a good solid 4 months, and then I would crash. And so I just learned from that first year experience of building Homecrest Company that I couldn't do that because it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And so having to kind of go, okay, no, you need to stop working at this time. And yeah.
Yeah, and you can't function at the highest level either. I mean, your output starts to
Right.
suffer, right? That's what I realized is, it's
Mhm.
and now I do similar things where, I will have like sprints, if you like, and then I'll just be like, I got to take this weekend off because my brain is just mush now, and it's going to be of
Yes.
no value, right? And then you start going, because it's like trying to go to the gym 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. It's going to be detrimental, right? So that's the way I
Yes.
think of it now. In my brain, it's an organ, but it's a muscle, really, when you're building a
Yeah.
business on your own. So if you don't treat it well, it will not treat you well either. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the other thing which we talked about was, you mentioned it just now, the isolation of this journey, right?
Mhm.
Especially when you don't have role models in your immediate circle, right? Like same, I was similar to you, where I didn't have anybody in my family or anywhere that was sort of had been on this path, right? So can you tell me, you started to touch on it, but where have you found your tribe and your community and your mentorship?
I have found from the social media aspect,
Yeah.
again, because I kind of have to do two buckets because I'm doing two different industries, or working two different industries. And so from the social media aspect, my tribe has been other influencers. And we have this, multiple groups, where we participate. Now, depending on how my schedule is, I typically can only participate in limited amount of groups, but it's several of us who have followings from 1,000 followers, and this is on Instagram.
Yeah.
Followers from 1,000 to 100,000. But we have really been. It started as, okay, let's create content together, but then it began, or it morphed into this just very supportive group of women, and from around the world. There's people in the UK, or women in the UK, that are in this group. It's about 15 of us, and
Wow.
it rotates based on, you can, again, choose if you want to participate in creating content or collaborating. But it became this, women cheering each other on, because we would share our content before we pushed it out onto Instagram, and we share each other's. And so that has been, not just even from a mentorship, but has really helped me grow my business. And because I see what they're doing, right, and they're so generous with sharing and collaborating. So I would say that, from the social media perspective of the lifestyle brand. When it comes to Homecrest Company, and kind of this retail or online store, I have connected with some really, really amazing small business owners in Kalamazoo that are like-minded, and just are the same, have the kind of their vision is very similar to mine. And what I mean by that is, when I look at Homecrest Company, I don't just look at a home decor store. I take very, very, very much pride in that I am a 100% woman-owned business. But I really want Homecrest Company to be a place that offers home decor and products and gifts that are from other local and regional, statewide, even nationally, other women business owners and minority business owners. That's extremely important to me, making sure that I'm choosing products for Homecrest Company. So I've found so much mentorship with, other business owners that use similar vendors, and, how do you price your products? And so that's been really, again, finding your tribe, finding the people that, are going to benefit you and help you, and you can benefit them and help them. Both,
Right.
Your industries align, and yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a two-way street, like you said, and I think it's to me it's the most vital part of surviving this journey, right? Is to be able to find the people who are mutually supportive in that way. And again, you have to get out there to be able to do that, and not everybody will be, right? Because I mean, people are
Right.
in the corporate world, or like you said, small businesses that may be brick and mortar or chamber. I haven't even been to the local chamber of commerce. People have told me to do that before, but I just felt like it's not, perhaps not the right fit, because I am also an online business.
Right.
And I get it, because it's a very different beast, right? Brick and mortar
It is a
versus
very different.
online,
Yes.
and even just
Yes.
perceptually. So,
Right.
so let me ask you now: was there ever a moment that you wanted to quit on this journey, and what pulled you back?
Oh, there's been so many. Even no, and it really even. I guess it wouldn't feel normal if I didn't feel that way, or if I wasn't being pushed, to continue and to take risks. I wouldn't be where I'm at. But there's just been so many, I think, with all the financial ups and downs that I've had to experience as a small business owner. Again, having, I essentially really came from nothing, and had to really, build where I'm at today. And so, I think that when you hit a financial block, and, you've got a family to take care of,
Yeah.
that you're solely responsible for, there's been times where I've gone, it, hey, do I need to go back to the corporate world? But, I've just continued to keep going, because, I believe in myself, but I believe that what I have will succeed. So, yeah, there's been, I think that really financially problems trigger me, but also, other things, things that maybe aren't in my control, just going, gosh, the retail store, things just aren't working, coming together. And so just, I've had to keep a really positive mindset. And during this journey, has really transformed me spiritually. And I've had to learn to have a lot of patience. And so, um, yeah, that there's definitely, it still happens, not as frequent that I feel like I want to quit, but it's totally normal. I didn't know that that was normal as a solopreneur to feel that way. But now talking to other people or other mentors, I know that that feeling of wanting to just quit and be done is normal. But my advice is just to keep going, just keep going.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's where, again, the tribe helps, right? Because I agree with you. I mean, I'm like, at least once a month, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And
Yeah, yeah.
nothing
Am I
happens on
crazy,
your
right?
timeline, right? I mean, the best laid plans, it's very true. It's like, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then you're like, wait a minute, what's happening? Nothing's happening. In fact, I think I might have
Right.
mentioned, right? Like my pet phrase now for solopreneurs, if you build it, they will not come. So you've got to just sort of accept
Yes.
that and still keep going because eventually they will come, right?
Absolutely.
Not on the
Yes. Oh
timeline.
yeah.
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 I had so many people tell me to quit. I mean, I'm somebody who will just be very honest. I've had many people, family members, I lost a lot of friends, just and yeah, it was painful. Last year was the most difficult year of my life. Losing, many family members, many friends, that just kind of just didn't believe in what you're doing and saying, "Hey, maybe you should quit what you're doing. It's not working." But if someone's not in your position every single day
Yeah.
and they don't see the strides and they don't see, they only see what they want to see. Or, so they're not living the experience. And so I'm not a quitter and I'm not giving up. And so, yeah, it's been an eye opener. The solopreneur journey um, has been, it's been a ride.
Yeah. Well, I always say it's the most fulfilling, but the most humbling journey you'll
Yes.
ever go on, right?
Oh,
So
yes, it is.
I completely agree. And that's why again the tribe matters. And that was my other sort of selfish reason for Boost Solo is because I've genuinely come to understand that unless you're on this journey, it's impossible to understand, no matter how supportive somebody might be, or supportive, unsupportive people. But even people who are supportive don't really understand what you're going through, right? And it's very
They don't.
different from the traditional entrepreneurial route where you go raise money, get capital, have mentors, have
Mhm.
VCs. It's not that at all. We're not trying to become
No.
unicorns or world dominating companies. We just want to build a business around our life, right? Is the way I describe it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and and it's interesting because the people that are still the very few that are still in my life, it's interesting to look that they are entrepreneurs themselves or they are business owners. And so, like for instance, I'm very close with one of my aunts. She lives right outside Chicago, and she is a retired attorney and had a practice and so she had that entrepreneur background and she's been one of my biggest cheerleaders. And so it's just interesting to see, the people that get it and that support you, they understand because they've been through that journey.
Yeah, no, it makes a difference. And well, you've got another tribe now, Jen. Your
Yeah.
Boost Solo is also, you're part of that tribe
Yes.
now. Yeah. So you're
Yes.
very welcome here. So if we were to meet again in 5 years, what would you want to have achieved?
Oh, I have so many plans for
Yeah.
5 years. In 5 years, I hope that I think just overall, I hope that Homecrest Company becomes um, the number one home decor store in Michigan. I mean, that's really just one of my top, one of my top goals. I would love to maybe potentially, well, I will have other locations. I absolutely love Detroit. It's my favorite Michigan city. I hope that one day we have a downtown Detroit store. And I hope to really boost some economy locally in Kalamazoo we have a wonderful position with where we are. We're 2 hours exactly from Chicago, 2 hours from Detroit, and so I would love to see Homecrest become a household name, not only in Kalamazoo but regionally.
Well, I look forward to watching that happen, and I'm sure it will.
You know,
So, if you could offer one piece of advice to somebody wanting to start their solopreneur journey, what would you tell them?
I would say I would say definitely take your time to develop the concept. Don't quit your job. right away. You keep your job. You need that. It's important to have money coming in when you're trying to build a business. But really take the time in the beginning, even before you want to form the LLC or however you form your business. But making sure that you're taking the time, asking yourself the questions. What do I love doing? Um, how can I showcase that, or how can I show that to the world? And building a business around knowing your target market, knowing pricing, really getting the knowledge and the background before you execute. If I could go back in time, I would have. I don't regret anything, but I again, self-reflection, I would go back and have done a lot more of that data collecting and that research prior to going all in. But again, you don't know what you don't know, and you learn. So that would be my best piece of advice.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. The research really helps you sort of smooth out some of the friction, which, will be there irrespective of what you do, but it definitely
Yeah.
sort of helps you head it in the right direction in terms of having at least a hypothesis, right? So you're not shooting in the
Yes.
dark when you start. But,
Right.
ultimately you still got to start though. So that's key.
Yes.
So is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners that we haven't covered?
I just want to let your listeners know, just uh follow us on Instagram or Homecrest Company. If you're in Michigan or in the Midwest, I would love to see you. Come to Kalamazoo, check out our retail store when we open. I am hoping to be open in July, but yeah, no, I just would love for our audience to take a look at our website and our social media, and just follow our journey.
Okay. So that brings us to our rapid fire round. So I'm just going to throw 5 questions at you and
Okay.
tell us what comes to mind. So,
Okay.
favorite room to stage and why?
Living room. I love a living room because there's so many possibilities that you can do and refigure furniture, that the options are endless.
Cool. Complete this sentence. Every home needs a good blank.
Every home needs a good view.
I love that. I'm hoping one day mine will be over a golf course, but that's a
Yeah.
different thing.
Yeah, yeah.
What's one decor trend you secretly can't stand, but your customers love?
Oh, so Um, and I have to be transparent. I was obsessed with this home decor trend, and I formed Homecrest Company on this home decor trend. And now I really have learned to not like it at all. But that's farmhouse home decor.
Okay.
Again, I know people still. I'm sure there's people that still really, really love farmhouse, and I still have things in inventory that are farmhouse, but that's one that I've evolved from.
That trend
So
has left the station, it sounds like, yeah.
it has left the station. Yeah.
What's something people would be surprised to learn about you?
I think often people, I love the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. I think that when people look at me for some reason, and not all people, but I think that sometimes people think that maybe I'm not nice, or, I think that that's a misconception of me when you get to know me. I'm very nice. People either really love me or they don't like me, because I'm just kind of who I am, and I speak my mind, and so I think that that's what would surprise people.
I can't imagine somebody thinking you're not nice. Really.
Oh no, there's few.
Well, they're
No,
lost. Um,
there's more people that love me than hate me. So no, I
that's
just
good.
I love people, but and I'm a forgiving person, but yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of my favorite phrases was somebody told me years ago, and I think it's an ancient proverb: is hate only corrodes the vessel it's carried in. So I don't care. I really don't care what other people think now, right? Unless you've done something bad, but other than that, I really don't.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I have no guilt. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, no, it doesn't bother me a bit because I know that I'm being who I am. And if, someone struggles with that, that's on them. So
What's one thing you do every day to stay creatively inspired?
So my most creative times are very early in the morning. I don't know what it is. I for some reason I've learned to love to get up about 4:30, and I have a routine of having coffee and all of that. And so that has really been, uh, that's what's gotten me to stay grounded.
The 4:30 a.m. wake up? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, the 4:30, or to be creative, yeah, to the 4:30 getting up, kind of zoning in and knowing when my most creative time is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Before the world is up. I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I can get a lot accomplished in an hour and a half between 4:30 and 6 than I can in 4 hours during the day.
Yeah, I've heard a
So,
lot of people, a lot of solopreneurs actually have sort of talked about that. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe I will. Um,
yeah, it's a common thing with entrepreneurs and business people. Or not a many people, they find that that's their creative time or when they can get a lot done. So,
yeah, provided you're a morning person though, because I know
yes.
people
Yeah,
who are not.
exactly, and I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, if your brand had a signature scent, what would it be?
Oh, I love that you brought this up. So I actually, given that I've really embraced brand marketing, scent marketing is something that I've been researching, and the research behind scents,
Yeah.
and actually, yeah. And so I've been trying to figure out what scent will be the Homecrest Company signature. Uh, when you walk into the store, like similar to Abercrombie and Fitch, some of those, Victoria's Secret, there's always this scent when you walk in, and that is activates, psychology perspective that kind of, that helps the buying decision for the customer. It makes the customer feel normal. It's predictable. And so I've actually been researching what scent I want the Homecrest and Company to be. And so I'm torn between a couple scents, but it's going to be this floral, uh, but with a signature sandalwood, because I will be having quite a bit of men's products, and so I want it to be a scent that both men and women, when you put it together, it kind of is just a neutral, feel good scent.
Oh, I love that because I think brands have sort of lost the what do you call it, the plot on that, right? In terms of having
Oh
jingles
yes,
or characters or scents. I mean, those
yeah,
are all things you used to do, and like you said, there's like a connection that happens and a memory that's built, right? As long as
yeah.
it's a pleasant experience, it doesn't
Yeah,
work. Well. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes, yes. And hopefully Homecrest and
yeah. I'm
Company
sure it
will
will be.
have,
Yeah,
but yeah, to your
yeah.
point, yeah, you want to have a good experience with that scent.
It's
So
a powerful way to build a brand. Well, that and that
it is. Yeah.
that's a great note to end the show on. So thank you so much, Jen, for your time, for all your insights, and for sharing your journey with such honesty.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Jen's story reminds us that you don't need to have it all figured out to start, and that sometimes the best business strategy is just being genuinely human in a world that's increasingly automated. Here are my key takeaways. Don't wait for permission to start. Jen didn't have a business plan when she created her Instagram account. She just started showcasing what she loved and let the business model evolve from there. Solopreneur's clarity comes from doing, not overthinking. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a starting point. Traditional paths aren't the only paths. When grant applications got rejected because she didn't have employees, when the Chamber of Commerce didn't embrace her online first approach, she didn't change her model. She found her tribe elsewhere. The system wasn't built for solopreneurs, but that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Sometimes you just need to find the rooms where your vision makes sense. Resilience is your secret weapon. Jen's ADD taught her early that she'd have to work harder than her peers. That resilience became her superpower as an entrepreneur. The things you've had to work hardest to manage often become our greatest strengths. That muscle memory of figuring it out the hard way ends up being a real asset in a solo business. There's no one size fits all playbook. Jen made some bold, deeply personal choices to back her vision, including selling her house to fund a retail pivot. It's not advice, it's context. Solopreneurs don't confuse courage with recklessness. Big moves are sometimes necessary, but they only work when they're rooted in clarity, not desperation. Authentic customer service is a powerful differentiator. Jen refuses to use AI chatbots or automated responses because she believes in actual human connection. She wants customers to call and talk to a real person, just like retail used to be. In a world obsessed with automation, choosing to stay human can be your sharpest edge. People remember how you made them feel, not how optimized your systems were. The behind the scenes reality of solopreneurship is intense. Jen was surprised by the sheer hard work and how long you have to sustain that, often working full time, plus nights, and minimal sleep. Solopreneurship is tougher than the Instagram posts suggest. You'll work harder than you ever have, but you also need to set boundaries so you don't burn out. Jen's story proves that the most sustainable businesses aren't built on perfect timing or endless resources. They're built on resilience, creativity, and the courage to keep going when everyone else thinks you should quit. Thanks for listening to Unfiltered Solopreneur. If you got value from today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another solopreneur who needs this message. Until next time, keep breaking free from the corporate grind. And remember, your story is your most powerful asset. Live solo or die corporate.